I think we need to, we want to go skiing in the Alps. We want to have fun. We want to live as well. You can't just, go back and don't eat meat. Maybe eat some different meats.
And I think that calls for, when you say it's too small for them, how can questions like this be too small? Shouldn't we expect more of people?
I haven't still found what I'm looking for with you two. Would that be the right one?
Also realistic and hoping that people understand that it is an actual change we need to make.
I disagree.
Okay, you just gave me a quote that I will live on forever. So what did you say? If you don't lose
track, you don't find the new roads.
I love that.
Yeah?
So much. Thank you. Good work. Welcome to The Switch, not just another podcast. Here to entertain you and to educate you in order for you to be able to make the switch into a greener and better and balanced world where we can all rejoice together. Sounds philanthropic? No, it's just the truth of where we are today, and you can be a part of it. I'm here. My name is Kristina Hagström-Elievska, and I'm the naive optimist with rebellic streaks that will guide you and host you through this show. But I'm not alone. Behind the scenes, we have my amazing producers, Emil, also Jacob from BNB, and of course, Baseload, making sure that we can air this show. I am in Oslo attending CleanTech Scandinavia's conference here, and I've had the pleasure to interview a few really amazing people, and we're going to continue that quest today. Let me introduce the next guest. He is a fund manager and CEO at Almi Invest Greentech, a pioneer in climate tech venture capital investments. They have done 34 investments and 3 exits to date. As a fund manager for Greentech Fund, Stefan has overall responsibility for the teams and the investments. The work involves finding, investing, and developing innovative companies with growth potential, build value, scale, and proactively exit the holdings. He invests in companies with substantial effect on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. He invests in areas from energy, transport, industry and manufacturing, advanced materials, waste handling, and circularity to food, land use, and forestry. Whoa, that's immense. But also, there is a person behind it, and we are going to find out more about him. Are you ready for that?
I am.
Oh, I'm happy that you are. Welcome to The Switch, not another podcast, Stefan.
Is that so? Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you. Yeah. You are going to get a bunch of questions asked about everything from vision and mission and everything that has to do in really making sure that we do the transition to the switch. And I am going to challenge you.
I bet you are.
I bet I am.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm going to challenge you with my amazing buttons. Right. One of them being the bullshit button. Okay. You can...
I don't want to go there.
No, you don't want to go there. But you can also challenge me with that one.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, what we want to do here is to elevate and make sure if we have something awesome, let's push that button.
The green button.
Yeah. Are you ready for that?
I am.
Good. I'm eager to get to know you. On a personal note, we heard that you like to take the boat to get to an island and to get some seafood on the cliffs.
Yeah.
Is that an electrical boat?
It's not. It's not. So... we are actually, I would love to be able to say yes to that. And it's, the funny part is that I actually did a personal CO test try on how much, CO2 impact I do in my personal life. And I have 2 electric cars, I do a lot of, mindset, focusing on the right actions. Mm-hmm. And when I ticked in having a boat, it really jumped.
It did, yeah.
So electric is next on the, so X-Shore, the cheaper one, and I'm on.
I'm signing up for that one too.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
I'm with you. I'm also one of those boat owners that actually go off the charts when I take in that boat.
Yeah.
But what I like about what you just said is that you're actually evaluating and looking at yourself and see what you can do more or less or differently,
Yeah.
which is really good. Let's get to know even more about you and see what the wheel of questions will give you.
Wheel of questions. What would you sing at karaoke night?
It's a tricky one. I mean, we probably have an international audience now, I guess. So, and the fact being in a VC space, I would probably go for I haven't still found what I'm looking for with you two. Would that be the right one?
Yeah, that's the right one to say. But what one is the actual one you sing in the showers? Tell me that one now.
Staten och kapitalet.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We go back to Swedish. I'm the same. It's completely fine to do that. Definitely.
No, it's probably it's.
Let's just keep to that one. I like that.
Wheel of questions. Who is your hero?
Damn, it's a tricky one. It tells a lot about me.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, which is the fun part. But at the same time, I really would like to say my wife because she's brilliant in so many ways.
Why? Why would you say your wife being your hero?
No, but she's much more very structured, very clever. Keeps things in perspective.
I think she will be very happy hearing this. So
but is it fun? Is it like what you want to hear? Like your wife? I don't know.
You know what the fun part is? The truth is always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it's heartwarming as well. Thank you for letting us getting to know you a bit more. Let's dive into the GreenTech Fund and see a little bit more here. You were one of the speakers at the CleanTech Capital Days. So what's the connection between investment and climate change?
Well, I think first of all, climate change is the top challenge we have. It's the greatest problem that we have in front of us. And innovators, entrepreneurs are the ones tackling challenges and problems all day long. That's what they do. So doing investments in these startups, entrepreneurs, is really the only way that I see coming to tackle that challenge. So investing, making money out of it, I think that's one good way to scale it, but it's for sure needed. New technology is needed to do that.
Do you believe that startups and innovations are the solution for reaching net zero?
Oh, now I'm gonna push the green button.
Oh, good. Finally.
Was that the right one?
That was the right one. Please tell me, elaborate.
We need new technologies. I mean, we can of course change the way we live. We can put solar, and we can work much more with transport, new transport solutions and so forth. But we really need new technologies. International Energy Agency published, I think it was last year, a report that 50% of the technology is not yet invented. That's really needed to take us to net zero by 2050. So, yeah.
Do you believe that the startups of today are ready to tackle and handle this pressure in a sense? Are they ready for it?
No, I think more and more see this coming, and I think it's driven partly by consumers being much more aware as well, and policymakers and lawmakers pushing in this direction. So I think people want to work with it, and I think the years ahead is probably going to be a fight for talent as well, and I think people want to work with more, things that really add value to themselves as well. So the more of the issues we see and the problems we see, the more people I think want to work and contribute to that journey.
What is the state of climate tech today, in your opinion?
I think it looks fairly different in different markets. I think we see in the Nordics in general, and in Sweden in particular, a very strong drive in this space, in different types of startups that push the greenhouse gas emission agenda forward. We see a lot in renewable energy, waste handling, new materials. The food tech space has arisen heavily the last 2 years. So I think it's pretty strong. And I don't see, of course, it will be affected by the existing turmoil on the financial markets. But I think the underlying trend is there. It's going to be there. That's where you're going to find the next unicorns, the next industries to be built. That's from within those tackling these, issues.
So what you're saying is that climate tech is really a hot investment, 2022.
Yeah, it is for sure, and I think it will be also next year or year thereafter. I think in the long run, this is something we need to work with for 10, 15 years ahead. Whether you make a unicorn in 2 years or 5 years, I don't know. But I think we see consumers actually changing their way of living and behaviors. We have one company in our portfolio that map menus in restaurants, so based on the climate footprint they do. So when you choose your dish for your lunch at work, you actually can, on your own sort of choice, make one that is impacting to a lower degree than you would otherwise do. And I can just, myself, I don't go for the meat dish as much as I did before. I mean, that's one way to change the way that we live today.
Do you think that we're nudging enough?
I think we need to make it easy to make right. So nudging is one part, but I don't think you should expect everyone to be that aware. So it should be easy to make the right decisions.
Shouldn't we expect more of people? Isn't that like the core essence? Can't we expect more people? We are in a crisis. Shouldn't people take the responsibility?
You want also to have, you can't go back and society needs to, I think we need to, be able, we want to go skiing in the Alps. We want to have fun. We want to live as well. You can't just, go back and don't eat meat. Maybe eat some different meats.
No, I agree with you there. I think definitely, we can't stop behaviors, but isn't it like, should the government and the industry, should we really put a lot of money in to help people making the right decisions? Shouldn't there be a responsibility also from the people to actually read up on and understand? We are in the midst of a climate crisis. Isn't it both the individual responsibility as it is the governmental and investors in?
But if I take myself, for example, I've tried back in my home, to steer my consumption of electricity to certain hours. And that can be done in order to achieve a low electricity price. But you are still charged by the same tariff from the grid owner. Regardless if you consume during night or during daytime. Why not do the same way as we do on the roads? It's free charge, no charge whatsoever for the grid during nighttime. That would drive innovation towards, autonomous fuel pump or heat pumps that actually goes on when the price is low, as well as not utilizing the grid during those hours. Now we're getting a bit technical, but I think there are some incentives that government and lawmakers can make to make it easy. I shouldn't think of that myself. But of course we should engage and be more aware and all that.
So it's on all levels.
Do you engage?
I do.
How?
I do.
How do you do that?
Doing this podcast, making sure that people are educated and entertained, for one example, because I do think that there is a lot of people out there that should be able to make smarter decisions if they are informed. And I feel that they often not are informed, because I think that this sector and the way we're talking about climate tech and investment and climate issues is either scaring people or making them tired. So I think that we need something that is entertaining and easy to act on in order for them to understand.
I think we should push also to be more positive to it. Don't see, we see the fires, the flooding and all that is sort of effects on the way that we have been living for 50 years. I think we can turn this into something positive. Not the fires as such, but what we build now is corporates and new industries that we can capitalize on as a society for like the coming 50 years. So I think we need to open the sight and look much further ahead.
I agree. We had here yesterday, there were companies pitching, and we had green forestry.
Yeah.
Correct? And they have a drone that actually cleans the trees that are dead and makes sure that we take away those trees so they are not as easily burnt down, which is a really cool invention to have in the CleanTech solution. Let me go back to that, because I think that, we are here, they're pitching, they want money in order to grow and so on. Yeah. What is the investor side's responsibility? You're sitting in an investment fund. Yeah. What is your responsibility in order to make sure that we do the...
But it's very easy to, why don't you engage more in each and one of the cases? So it's always a trade-off. If, let's say that I were to engage in a certain company, I would not have the time and resources or the money to support the other company. So it's really a trade-off. That's why we are very selective, that when we engage in a company, we are really anxious and careful to make sure that they actually do a footprint, that they do an impact. So we've turned down cases that it's still green, it's still valuable, but it's not as much as it could be. So I think,
is that a responsibility from the investor side to really be starting to asking these questions, like what's your impact, how do you do this, so that the companies that want investments can actually start thinking about it?
Yeah, and I think I think more and more are getting sort of aware of it themselves, but I think investors need to see that as a business opportunity. By thinking of those topics, by addressing the climate and the emission topic, you're more competitive in the long run. It's a bit of sustainability topic. You are sustainable in the long run if you are sustainable.
I would like to push the great button there. We had a speaker from SDCL, and he said if it's not commercial, it's not sustainable.
Exactly.
So I like that one. That brought that with me. Listen, I'm more curious about how do you identify projects that you want to invest in? What kind of projects do you have interest in?
We tend to lean, I think we tend to believe that companies that comes from a technology is something that is easier to scale over time, not necessarily in the short term. But I don't think we would buy new apps and new type of software solution solve the climate crisis. We need new type of hardware solutions, deep tech solution, new ways of
For people who don't know that, what's a hardware solution and what's a deep tech solution?
Let's say new type of solar panel is a hardware, a product that we enable a production of something, and that comes with developing the product, putting up a factory, doing a pilot, a demo. Full-scale production, putting something to market, which is much longer lead time than you would normally see for a software or an app for let's say nudging or informing people. That's a totally different sort of business model.
And what about deep tech?
A deep tech is more research driven, so that's more in connection to the research in universities, and that can be commercializing research data. So that's even longer than when you make a product out of it.
So when you are investing in these kind of companies, you really need to understand and ask the right questions of what benefits it's now and in the future and how long this is going to take. You need to be having patient capital. Is that something that you work with?
That is something that is one of the biggest challenges for this industry as of today. It's to get the long-term capital that can stick with the companies, we have a financial system today which is built up in shorter periods. You invest for certain years, and then you prolong a fund, and then you close the fund and you raise a new one. That setup has been good for software, scaling of software companies. It's not as suitable for building industrial companies, production companies. So there is a big gap there. So that's one of the biggest hurdles that we see now is the funds are too short. We need longer, like 15, 20 year, or even what we call in the finance industry, evergreen funds that are open-ended in order to support these companies. That's actually extremely important going forward. Another topic that I think is very important also is to lift the eyes a bit and not just look on domestic solutions and domestic companies. Here we launched yesterday a Nordic coalition for CleanTech, where we gather the leading investors on the Nordic arena to support Nordic companies. I think we need more to be able to support the companies we have in Nordic region, to be able to scale to US, to Europe, to Asia. So in order to have a real impact, we need these companies to scale and be big, and we won't do that by just focusing on Sweden, Denmark, Finland. So we need to open up a bit.
I think that's...
I need to push.
Please do. My next question was, Sweden is one of the biggest green tech investors in recent years. What is the secret and what can European countries learn from this? I think that there is a lot to learn from Sweden, but if we elevate it to what you just said, what is there to be learned about the Nordic countries? If we actually fix the problem of collaboration, that is really something that can be a switching point for many countries and regions out in the world.
I think so. And what all Nordic countries have been doing and are pretty good at is to support research and education system. So all these new technologies, they don't just grow up out of nowhere. It's really research driven, higher education, finance to some degree, but engineers in particular. We need new engineers to come out of the top universities. And we need to cooperate more, focus more on the ecosystem. We can't do this. It's not a one-man show. We need to have certain parts in the ecosystem to enable these companies to scale and grow. What I think we've been good at is early stage. What I think we are lacking a bit is the later stage scaling of these companies. We don't have the funding for it. We have less connections and network in that space. We just saw last year 70% of the funding that went into Nordic companies came from outside Nordic region.
How much did you say? 70%?
70%. So we have lots of capital here in the Nordics, but it's going to digital platforms and all that. We don't see those investors allocating that much to the climate topics, which is a pity. But we do see American funds coming here. I get probably 2 calls each month from European funds or American funds that want to tap into our network of companies here.
Interesting.
It is, but we don't see the big investor, the big Nordic investor, the pension funds nor the institutional investors. This is too small for them. But you have American or European funds that allocate more into VC scaling. So I think there's probably 2 areas we need to work more on.
And I think that calls for, when you say it's too small for them, how can questions like this be too small for something like a pension fund or something like that? Didn't we communicate enough with them? Are we not collaborating enough?
But I think it's the financial system which is sort of still stuck in structure which is not really suitable for these companies. It's much easier to allocate at we tend to stick in silos. So you work with venture capital, or you work with private equity, or you work with infrastructure investments, but you don't really mix them, or debt, but you don't really sort of. So for certain companies, like baseload capital is a good example. If you scale projects, you don't necessarily do that with private equity. It's probably better to tap into project finance or infrastructure or long-term pension funds. And that's what we have seen on the build-out of onshore wind power in the Nordics. That is done by pension funds. It's not private equity, and it shouldn't be.
Do you think a coalition that is created now could actually help this conversation to move forward and to make better decisions?
I think so, and I think so, and I really hope so. I think we all are a bit different, the Nordic countries, which is good in that sense. Klimatfonden, for example, in Finland, they do larger tickets. That's very suitable for many of our companies. We have 34 companies now that will be raising close to 2 billion Swedish krona next year. it's not very easy to find that within our borders. So we need to have these, networks and alliances in order to help them.
Awesome button for collaborations. That's definitely a one to go. We're here in the nest of CleanTech. What areas do you think is important to cover for the future?
I think we will, in energy-related, energy production, storage of energy. That is, I think energy production is on the top agenda in many of the European countries nowadays. Self-sufficiency of electricity. But there are so many more areas. Storing is very, very important. Not necessarily in hydrogen, but other types of media.
For example?
Like that can be heat, that can be cooling, that could be types of battery solution. Doesn't have to be lithium-ion batteries, but other ways of redox flow batteries, for example, for storing electricity over days, over weeks. But we also see, we've seen a bit in agriculture and food tech, how you make your society more resilient when it comes to supplying food. It's a big CO2 emitter. The fertilizer, chemical production, highly relevant. We see the forest industry creating a lot of, but we see an increased number of startups coming in that area, where you use side stream from the wood industry, and you create new products based on that. We got one company here, Modvion, doing. It's not one of our companies, but doing towers for wind powers in wood. It's brilliant. You get other new types of polymers and plastic that you create out of wood as well. We have 2 companies in that space. So I think we will see a wide range of climate-related topics.
And it's interesting because you're mentioning now things that might not come up as a climate company from the start, but actually, if you think of it, they're part of the logistical scheme and cycle, and it actually becomes a part of it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting actually when you see. We were talking with an organization, a large organization supporting the Östersjön, the East Sea.
Yeah, Baltic Sea.
The Baltic Sea. Yeah, thanks for that. And you think they are actively working on the quality of the water, but they are as much focusing on fertilizers and nitrogen on the lands around it, which makes sense because it all comes down to the ocean. So there are so many things that we didn't think were sort of affecting the water quality, but it's still a very strong CO2 case. Technology relating to land use and farming, but it affects also the water. So it's very much it goes hand in hand.
It's an ecosystem that we need to understand and get informed.
It is a biological ecosystem as well as a financial ecosystem.
Agree. Now we move into questions from our future.
Questions from our future.
Do you believe we can make the change needed?
I do, but it would require a joint effort. So I think we need to take the signal serious. And we tackled the COVID pandemic. I think this is probably substantially more serious. But I think we can challenge it. I think we can solve it, yes.
You're optimistic.
I'm optimistic. I think it should be. I mean, entrepreneurs are optimistic, and I think we got so many. And I think we shouldn't do that. I think we can solve it. I think we can come better out of it. So I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic, but I'm also realistic. It's going to hurt, and it's going to be intense through a period of time. And what makes me optimistic is that we have done it so many times before, but in other challenges. You mentioned the pandemic. For one, we've done it before. I'm just also realistic and hoping that people understand that it is an actual change we need to make.
I disagree.
Okay, cool.
No, I disagree in that sense. I don't think people will accept the hurting. I think we have to change, but we will do that at such a late stage where we have no option left.
But isn't that going to be more hurting?
Yeah, but I think, well, for environment, yes, and I think many people will sort of have to apply and have to, but I think it will need a bit of, I think it won't come for, that's why I think the easy part is to do that on beforehand, to create and push for I mean, incentivize sticking carrots. I mean, you do your own choices, but you also have the government who forces you to act in a certain way. But yeah, at some stage, maybe it will hurt.
But you know that I'm going to tell something personal about me. You know, I'm a personal trainer, so I kind of like
the hurting part.
The hurting part. I think it's good for us. I think it reminds us also that we need to bear our own burdens.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're also an educated person. I think it all comes down to knowledge and insights and understanding. I don't think we should, I'm hopeful, but I think also we should be realistic. Did you open with that sense here?
I think so. So I think that we agree on this one.
No, so I think
Optimistic and realistic.
Yeah, and I think you should be honest and transparent with the problems we are facing. And there I think I'm pretty confident now that we see all these, alarming reports. Everyone is sort of starting to see that happen as well.
Agree.
So the more and the next hot topic I think we will sort of encounter here and meet is biodiversity topics. We're starting to see that. And that's going to be so interesting to start looking to that space as well, because in some cases it might be contradictory. I mean, do we build a wind farm and with the effect it will have on biodiversity, yes or no? So it's going to be challenging decisions to make. But I mean, if it would have been easy, we would have done it already.
True that. But let's keep on doing it anyway. We're moving you into the uncomfortable conversation segment. I have a question for you.
Uncomfortable conversations.
Can investing in green tech and companies with positive impact compete with investments that are still made in the oil and gas industry?
It can outperform. I would rather turn it one step further. I see more risk in oil and gas investments. I mean, why the risk there going forward? I have such hard time understanding why you would commit investment in that space going for long term. I can't see that sort of being relevant going forward. So
Elaborate.
No, but I think it's if you start on a macro, solar and wind and renewable, you have no fuel in that type of energy source. If you just start by the electricity generation. So for each megawatt hour you produce, you have zero cost input. It's only the capex. So the more you build, the cheaper it will become. For oil and gas, nuclear as well, you have at least 2 cents per kilowatt hour. That is a fuel cost. So I think going forward, I mean, in the long run, those types of technologies will have issues to compete. And then, of course, when you transition from one system to the other, you need some sort of incentives. The same with electric cars. You need the incentives. But at the same time, an electric engine is far more efficient than a fossil fuel-driven car engine. So the metrics per se is more efficient. So we need to build system long-term, built on those efficient system rather than what we have.
Isn't this some of the uncomfortable conversations that we actually need to have? I mean, these are the collaboration and discussions we need to have, because we will not be able to turn fossil fuel off for a while.
No.
I mean, but there is things that need to be done within the oil and gas sector that can actually make it better in the short term. But then at the same time, I mean, incentives to move them along and to help them to transition into something else. Isn't that a discussion that we're not having? Instead, we're standing on two different sides and saying, hey, you are bad, no, you're bad, no, you're bad.
Yeah.
Isn't this a really uncomfortable conversations that needs to be had?
Yeah, it is. It is. And also to tap into those insights and knowledge that you have. I mean, the oil and gas has loads of competences that you can use for offshore wind power or what have you. So I think more looking on a systematic, holistic view is so important. And there I think politicians have lots of work to do. So I think more level, I'm pretty pro an even play field. And let different technologies work on their parameters. I mean, in the Nordics, we are pretty good at renewable types of we have hydro and wind, and we will have solar also. And that will be a large proportion of our fuel mix, our energy mix. Other countries don't have that fortune of having that those sort of categories. And there you will have another. It's not bad, it's just different.
Interesting. Who should have these conversations? Who's responsible to putting people at the table?
I think politicians need to put up the boundaries, and they should be much more bold. Do like the Norwegian government did with the electric cars. Put some really tough, measurable targets. I think that's so important. And then don't micromanage. Open up. Let the companies solve much of this themselves. So tough regulations, push in a certain direction, see the commercial upside, and don't regulate too much. I think we have a lot of the EU sort of governmental body. I think we have a lot to learn from letting things, don't regulate it. Regulate it when a bit like the Chinese do. If it's too you put autonomous cars on the road, and when it's a big problem, you regulate it. So you don't have to start by the regulation part. You can open up a bit, and then you can regulate if it's a problem.
Interesting. This is a really twister, because what you're saying, this is really going against the culture in the Nordics in a sense. We regulate first, and then for security, and then we do something else. Do you think that if we would stop doing that, it will be faster, the transition will move faster?
Yeah, I think so. And I think although it's not like a straight line, evolution is always taking, there is a saying, if you don't lose track, you don't find the new routes. And it's a bit like that. You need to try something, and then you come back, and that's what startup and innovation is all about. You start somewhere, and you might pivot, you might change. It's not like you decide something 2017, and that's what you deliver in 2028.
You just gave me a quote that I will live on forever. So what did you say? If you don't lose
track, you don't find the new routes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So much. Thank you. Good one. Lovely. Great. Thank you very much. Moving on to our sunshine segment, where you get the opportunity to send sunshine to an organization, an individual, or any other kind of form of materia where you think should be elevated and get some sunshine. Who would you say? What would you say?
I would actually pick Race for the Baltics.
Okay, please elaborate.
Who is supporting the Baltic Sea? We touched upon that a bit before. It's a philanthropic initiative driven by Niklas Sundström, originally funded it. And I think it's so important because what they do and what they learn from that initiative is not only the Baltic Sea as such, but you can bring that to other areas that is sort of dying or becoming to die. So I think the learnings from they are scouting for new technologies to help us out there. So those types of initiatives are great, and I think we can. I would like also maybe to urge a bit these philanthropics and those, corporate builders that have done. And Donny Lake is doing massive now with his, or doing a great deal now with the Prima Materia Fund. So I think those types of role model is so important to make climate engagement relevant. And not only philanthropic, but also, you can make money of it. It doesn't have to be bad, but really pushing it long term.
And also at the same time, I think we're creating new role models for other generations. We're talking about influencers that can actually, like one person can actually make a big influence and help greater good. I would second that, Sunshine, of yours, definitely. And I would also like to second, to give you a Sunshine for being here, for attending The Switch, Not Another Podcast. It's been really a pleasure. If you would reflect on our conversation, what we've had here today, what do you bring with you?
No, I really appreciate the challenging part. I think we should do that more often. In a constructive way, challenge. We all look on things differently. Yeah, so I think I will bring that. I think that's a good way. Challenge. Don't take things too personal.
Challenge with a smile.
And have fun.
Yeah, and we did. Most definitely did have a fun conversation, and I learned a lot from you as well. So thank you very much again. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you share it to someone else who will be able to have a nice moment. Also remember to subscribe and to engage and comment and help us become better, because we're doing this for you, but also with you, in order for us all to have a better and greener environment around us. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and make sure that you take care of yourself, and hopefully also remember someone else. Thank you and goodbye.